Well, welcome everyone to the sixth session of the New South Wales Volleyball Referees Association online referee training series being held on Mondays and Thursdays during the month of August 2025. The purpose of this series is to be able to focus on refereeing topics and techniques that we believe would benefit referees of all levels, whether those just starting out to those preparing for AYVC or other national events. We've heard from a variety of highly experienced referees in New South Wales, and we trust that they've been helpful in your own refereeing journey. Today, we continue with Aaron Leo, who's presenting on the role of the referees. Aaron is an international referee and a former New South Wales VRA board director. He has officiated many national and international events over the past decade, and most recently at the AVC U16 Men's Championships in Thailand. A wealth of experience to learn from. So without further ado, over to you, Aaron.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction. Welcome everyone to this Wednesday session. So today I've been given the opportunity to run a presentation that covers the role of referees. I'm going to try and do it as interactive as we can. In our previous sessions, we've always struggled to get responses, so we'll see whether this one could deliver a better outcome. So let's see whether this slide thing works. Look, the referee, according to FIVB, what's actually involved. Refereeing consists of conducting a match using the rules of the game as the base of all decisions. Back in the day, that probably used to be the case, but now it certainly has changed. Now, what is actually required to be a really good referee, really, a lot of it's around personal experience. I know you can learn the rules really, really well, but if you're not provided the opportunity to practice I suppose the different situations that you can implement the rules and deliver a really good experience and really good outcome and reward spectacular play while we talk about that. And this is probably one of the challenging sport out there whereby the rules may say one thing, but what the intent of the rule can be very, very different. And you can only really learn that from experience, working with your fellow colleague, working with experienced referees throughout the years, and then you'll certainly get it. A lot of us, as we said, you've got to participate in a lot of events, and ideally you're not there to try and look for faults. Your role is to be involved as effectively like a friend to help facilitate the game for the players and also for the coaches as well. Volleyball of today has certainly changed. If I look back when I first started my officiating career back in 2000, when Sydney had the Olympics, it was a very, very different game. Today, if you've seen the journey of volleyball in terms of the rules, there's a lot more leniency. There's a lot more appetite to keep the ball flying. The idea is to have the players demonstrate their skills, their ability, and also their high level of fitness and also collaboration or teamwork. That's what people pay for. They don't pay for referees to be around, really, to be seen. What is a good referee? Anyone here want to pipe in on what they think a good referee looks like? I'm going to call out a name. If no one jumps in, I'm going to look at someone in there and see how we go. Anyone? 3, 2, 1. Daniel Lee, first one on the list. What do you reckon is a good referee? Come on, Daniel, get yourself off mute. Oh, really? That's a real soft excuse. Then you better type in an answer. What makes a good referee? Anyone? Michelle? Ooh, let's see. Someone who knows the game. That's interesting. That's Michelle Herbert. Welcome to today. What do you reckon makes a good referee? No?
Unfortunately, I'm listening from work, so I can't jump in and chat.
Oh, wow. Look at that. What about, let me try Kelvin Mann. Consistency. Thanks, Stephen. Kelvin, get yourself off mute.
Sorry, what was the question again? I was driving.
What makes a good referee?
Someone that knows the game.
Yeah. Define knows the game. Define knows the game.
That can make the game flow
Okay. Interesting. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So according to FIVB, if you actually look at the rule book, it actually tells you that a good referee is one that rewards spectacular actions. Right? So we talk about how you've got to be a little bit more lenient when it's a challenging situation for a player to get to and be rewarded to get to it. So that's one thing, right? So you can only experience that once you do a lot of games, and you can only practice letting those kind of things go when you see more and more different situations of that kind of matter. The other things that they talk about in FIVB rulebook that a good referee makes is how they maintain really good relationships with players and coaches. Early on in my career, referees were seen as the other people. They're the people that we used to wear white uniforms, shirts and pants and belts and socks and shoes. And typically they used to think that people who couldn't play become referees. That has changed a lot over the years, definitely in my tenure as officiating. Yes, Kim, balance, calm and fair. That's a really good one as well. Thank you for contributing. But over the years, what we've seen has changed a lot is a lot of players now are becoming officials because they see the value of officiating as an alternative to contributing to the sport. As you all know, there are many ways to contribute to the game. You can be a player. You can be a coach. That seems to be a lot of natural path. And then now more and more are considering officiating as an alternative path to remain in the sport. But more importantly as well, it's also an opportunity to perform at a high level. Certainly in the early on, I knew I would never play in the Australian team as a volleyball player. And I really had no appetite to be a coach because that does take a lot of effort. And you've got to deal with 15 personalities plus their parents if you're coaching kids. And I saw refereeing as an alternative. So whilst I may not be able to play at a high level, I can officiate at a high level. And the good news is the behaviors of a high-performing athlete and the activities that they need to do are also very similar to a high-performing official. You've got to maintain your health, you've got to maintain your fitness, you've got to concentrate, you're under pressure. So a lot of the recipe of a high-performing athlete is also can be in a high-performing official. So the other thing about a good referee, I suppose it could be regarded as a good referee, is to have the ability to be able to determine when a player is under stress, whether it's a normal behavior or unsportsmanlike behavior. I know, certainly if I look back of the players of today compared to the players of 2 decades ago, the behavior or the respect for the officials and for the referee was very, very different. There was definitely a lot more unsportsmanlike conduct and behavior a couple of decades ago compared to today because we are seeing more and more players learning the rules of refereeing and the rules of the game so that they know what they can and can't do and respect that officiating a game is not as easy as people make it out to be. Any thoughts from everyone around here? Do you see this as some of the challenges that's hard to master when you're talking about building relationships and managing stress, managing, I suppose, player conduct during a stressful situation? Let's see. George, come and talk about your experiences. You've been around just as long as I have. He's probably he's either driving or he's probably doing someone's teeth. George, yeah.
Probably the second one, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably from your experience, what's it been like from, what is it, a couple of 15 years now you've been doing refereeing, is that right?
Closer to 20, close to 20 roughly.
So you would have seen a lot of changes?
Yeah, of course. It's like you said, it's getting people involved, I think, in the game at the highest level. Get all players exposed. I think in Australia we have also an advantage that in some countries where teams are expected to do some duty, right? So they're exposed. When a lot of people know that I lived half of my life overseas. In overseas, there's no such thing. It's you're a player and that's it. You don't experience that, and then you don't understand how things work. But also, Aaron, to add to what you just mentioned, technology these days that's been introduced to the game has also calmed things down a little bit. So when you have a very close match and when you have a challenge system involved, I know we don't have it on a local level, but in general, or generally speaking, it has shown how difficult it is to officiate a game, and especially a high quality and high level game. So that has shown and has shown everyone who's involved in the game how difficult it is, and especially those little touches that picked up by the technology. So that's my opinion anyway. Yeah, I agree with you. It has changed to the
Very true.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, George. And look, certainly for all those young referees that are on this call today, you are in a very, very fortunate time of volleyball in today's era, because there's a lot more leniency now than back in the day. So back then, any double contact made, it's straight away call. The ball handling level is set at relatively high level. It's almost like what beach was doing, where as soon as you see the ball spin, whistle is blown automatically. And so you used to see whistle for double contact calls in one set could be it could be a dozen whistles go through, depending on the quality of the game. Now, a good way to determine whether you've set a good ball handling level is, on average, I would say if it's a 5-setter, you would only really see maybe 3 calls due to ball handling, depending on the quality of the game. But even if it's a lower level and the skills are not that strong, you should still set a level whereby the players can still have a good game without totally demolishing the game, if you know what I mean. And therefore, you'd only be calling double contact maybe around 3 for a match, right? So if you start doing about 10 per set, then you might have set the ball handling level a little bit too harsh, which then makes a lot of stop starts, and therefore focus is really on the refereeing rather than on the play of the game. So some of the things you actually get that through experience. For those that are going to AYVC, you will have a great opportunity to practice that, because the levels may not be as high as what you're used to here, maybe, or about the same. And you've got referee coach there. They'll be watching you to be able to help guide you where is the level you need to set to still be in the spirit of the game of volleyball. So whilst we talk about the referee's role, it's important for you all to be aware of that it's actually dictated in the rule book. What is your role? What should you be doing in terms of behavior, in terms of like what you should look out for once you blow the whistle at the end of a rally. Whilst you may be told you should be looking around, this is actually written in there. So you need to practice this for a good reason, right? And effectively, one of the things that we see a lot is try and remember to do it. That's number one, because you get so excited about a ball in play. You blow the whistles, balls as a fault, hit the ground, whatever it may be. And then you just quickly show your action without really scanning first before making your signal. The good news is that if you slow yourself right down as if you're almost in slow motion, you actually have plenty of time to think about and also look around at the same time. So think of it as blow the whistle, fault. 1, 2, look around, make sure that it is the call that you want to make, that the rest of your team agrees with you, who won the point, and what is the fault. So you can almost talk yourself in a narrative way as you go through that kind of flow. Blow, whistle, fault. 1, 2, look around to make sure that everyone agrees with you with the fault. Oh, actually, second referee saw a fault at the net. Great, right? You go with the second referee. So if you go in that kind of tempo, it buys you enough time to do all the appropriate things you need to do. Looking at the line judge, whether it's in or out, or looking at your second referee, whether they might have blown a fault. So that gives you some additional time to almost work a narrative in your mind on what's happening in the game. It also helps you get involved in the game. It also helps you stay focused around all the things that you need to do in managing a game. And that kind of tempo, whilst you may feel it's very, very slow, the reality is it'll be a natural speed for the players because it gives them an opportunity to be able to, let's say, jump, land, turn around, look at you, and then you would be already signaling who won the point, why, because the ball hit the ground or hit the antenna, and then away you go, right? Couple of things as a first referee, you've got to make sure you allow enough time for the second referee and scorer to do what they need to do. Hence why it's really important, as you've learned throughout this year, to make sure before you blow the whistle to start the serve, scan around with lines person, second referee, scorer, lines, and then away you go. Well, actually, it should be lines, teams, second referee, scorer, team, lines, and then serve, and away you go. If you practice those, you will actually reduce the amount of times that you could actually cause an error. What are some of the things that could actually happen if you don't follow that kind of process? What could potentially happen? Who do we have here? Carmen. Haven't seen you in ages. What do you reckon could happen if you don't go through that routine consistently on every single before every single whistle to start a rally? Carmen? No? Yep. What could happen if you don't? What could happen if you don't follow the process of checking that the line's ready, scorer, player, etc., before you whistle to serve?
So maybe two different wheel for final decision. So someone will call in and you'll go out.
No. Yeah, that could be one of those. But I was actually more thinking of before you whistle to serve, so the points rally, etc. Before you whistle to serve, what would be something that could happen? You miss a sub or rotation error. Yeah, that could be one. That could be one of those things.
You'll be rushing your team, and if for example, if the score is fixing something, we're just making sure and the user rushing it, they won't have time to resolve that problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think rushing is the main point.
Yep.
And everyone is not ready.
I think what you're trying to get to and what I was actually looking for. So thank you, Yenna, for jumping in on that one, because effectively your scorer could potentially make a mistake. If you don't let the scorer complete what they need to do, for example, recording a substitution or recording a warning or recording something, they'll miss what could have happened in the next point. So that could be one. So that's a really good one. The other one that could also happen is if you don't do your checks, there may be no lines person there. Because what could happen is the lines person could have gone and chased the ball, or they could have fixed something on the sideline, like a banner might have fallen down or something like that. You blow the whistle to serve, the ball hits the line on where that lines person was going to fix up something. There is no lines person, and it was a very close call. Then what do? Right? So then that creates an issue, because if it's a really close call and you didn't see it or you were distracted for whatever reason, then all of a sudden it just creates the lack of confidence on the officiating team. The other thing that could also happen is that if you don't do the checks and then you blow the whistle, but then there was a substitution that was happening, whistle comes through, then you got to blow a replay. That also demonstrates that you're not doing the appropriate checks, but more importantly, you're creating unnecessary delays, right? So some of those things are the reasons why you make sure you go through your process of checking lines person's ready, team is ready, second referee's there, scorer looks ready, team is ready, lines person's ready, the server's got the ball, away you go. Does that make sense? thumbs up or whatever it is that works, if it is. Excellent. Thank you, Yenna. Thanks, Claire, and everyone else. Good to check that everyone's still awake. Okay. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as a first referee, you need to gather information from all your supporting crew before you make your decision, and your decision is final. Now, at our local league, at a national league, ultimately it is your decision. Now, we have seen scenarios whereby first referee may not necessarily have taken all the information. What could be some of the issues that could occur if the first referee doesn't take all the information necessary before making a decision? What's the worst thing that could happen? Mimu? Is that Mimu To? Mimu?
Oh, hi, Aaron.
Hi.
I think,
What could...
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, what do you think it would be?
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you could make some conflicting calls. So you could make the wrong call, which would disadvantage the other team.
Yep.
And, I guess that wouldn't be fair play, and that wouldn't be allowing the game to go as smoothly, and that wouldn't be as fun for both teams.
Excellent. All right. So that's really good, right? So interestingly, we all talk about right and wrong calls. So how do you know your call, the first referee's call, is right or wrong unless you gather the appropriate information? In my opinion, the worst scenario that could ever happen is that the ball was hit out, your lines person says out, your second referee is also indicating it was out and didn't touch a block, and you have chosen to call a net fault. A touch out. All right? Or in. The total opposite of what the rest of your team are. And usually players know whether it's in or out, or players usually know whether it's touched or not. So the worst scenario that could ever happen is all your team is making one call, you're calling the total opposite, and the teams as well will arc up because they believe there was no touch. Does that make sense? Thumbs up if that does. Cool. Excellent. Have you seen that scenario happen before? Yes, we've seen it many a time.
Yeah.
And it's not pretty, is it? So that's why it's really important to slow yourself down. Those that are going to AYVC or any other tournament for the first time, the good news is when you slow yourself down to gather the information, that gives you the best opportunity to digest and make the appropriate call. And I can tell you categorically, I've had scenarios whereby I believe it was a touch, lines says no touch, second ref says no touch, and the team definitely said there was no touch, and I went with what I gathered from the information rather than what I believe it was, right? Because as human, you could be wrong. And so whilst it is your final decision, you need to get the most information and make the appropriate judgment. Because I have done the other way, where lines person has gone out, second referee clearly didn't know what it was, and I have called a touch on the blocker, and I was right. Right? So there will be scenarios where you categorically know that you definitely saw it, then you go with your call. But if there is a bit of doubt, then it's actually better to go with your supporting team than it is to go against it if there is a doubt. Cool? All right. Let's keep going. Thanks, Yenna. Second referee responsibility. You don't need to mirror the first referee anymore like the old days. I think most of you here are all the new generation, so you never learned to mirror the first referee anyway. Your responsibility, it's really important to know what you're responsible for, which is the net touch, the net touch, the penetration beyond the center line, and the playing actions that any actions that hit the antenna, etc., on your side. You are also responsible for checking the positions. So, checking positions and knowing where players are, it is an art form, and it goes back to my first slide. It talks about to be a good referee, you've got to have experience. To be able to know or understand where players' position are or should be before the serve, and at the point of serve where they should be, all comes from experience, because there are some weird rotations out there. And the more you see the different weird positions and and so forth as well, the better you get at understanding that whether it is a fault or not a fault. A couple of things in there as well is when you're checking the positions before the start of the serve. In social volleyball, we might tell them that if they got it wrong, we kind of shout it out what the positions is. That is definitely a no-no, because you're basically giving the positions away to the opposition. So the reason I share this with you, because it was actually called out that what you should be doing is, if the position is wrong on the rotation sheet, you are meant to show that rotation sheet to the captain or the coach and let them rectify. Okay. You're also responsible as a second referee to keep things free from, keep obstacles away from the free zone. And of course, during the timeouts, those 3 points there, make sure the players are close to the benches in the timeout. Can anyone tell me why you want to make sure that the players are close to the bench rather than standing close to the sideline during a timeout? I'm going to call out Stephen Griffith. As we try and work out where the mute button is, maybe. Absolutely no idea. Z Lee, how about you? Any idea why we make sure players are close to the bench instead of doing the timeout next to the sideline? Think of. Sorry.
Oh, so I am audible because my microphone wasn't on. So.
Okay.
I think the couple of reasons. One, I think it's for the safety. When a player is going to chase a ball, if
no, stop. This is during the timeout. So during a timeout, right? You need to make sure as a second referee that all the teams during the timeout move towards the benches for a timeout, rather than just standing on the sideline in the timeout. You know, the 30-second timeout that gets called during a set?
I think that's for player management. And honestly speaking, I'm not actually too sure.
It's okay.
My instinct is that it will be for player management and also keep track of all the players on the court, I guess.
Not quite. I'll see whether anyone else could. Let's see. David. I think you're from Canberra, David. Is that right? Let's see where he pops up. I'll mute.
Sorry, guys, it's probably a bit noisy. I'm actually from Perth.
Perth. Welcome.
Typical reasons that I've seen would be, for example, if they're going to be taking, say, refreshments or whatever, so for a different water in the rest, they give it to the ground, the label what's in the court, because we have it's visibility of the second referee, so you're in control of what's happening. And also to, I guess, manage conduct in a way as well, that you're not having screaming at this conduct from the coach. It's going to give you visibility of what's happening.
Yeah, the second one's an interesting one, but really the first one is probably the main reason, is because usually during a timeout they may be drinking water or taking some food, etc. And if for whatever reason there is a spill and it's on the sideline, then you'll delay the game if you're trying to mop it up. That's really all it is. You want it close to the bench so that in the event there is a spill, the game can potentially start while the bench cleans up their water mess that may happen in that situation. That's really all it is.
It's still also a visibility thing in that sense, that even a spill close to the bench could pose a hazard that you want
potentially.
To be on top of.
Yeah, that's true. However, to give you a bit of perspective as well, in the international level, the bench is quite a long way away from the sideline, and so the interruption is a lot less in that respect. But anyway, that's really one of the reasons why we do it. Thank you very much, David. And then the other thing as well is, during the timeout, to go and check that the scorer is captured the timeout properly with the appropriate team, and give way to moppers previously in international matches. That's the other one as well. That's a good point. So in international matches, if any of you are fortunate enough in the future to become an international referee and do an event, they actually have floor moppers. And so during timeouts, some of them do mopping of the floors. And therefore, if you have teams close to the sideline, that would interrupt their ability to do so as well. So as a second referee, when there is a timeout, you go to the scorer to double check the number of timeouts that have been taken. And then if there has been 2 timeouts taken, obviously you then got to let the teams know they've had 2 timeouts and no more. But also, more importantly, make sure you show the first referee that they've had 2 timeouts as well. Because why is that important? That you need to show the first referee that there's been 2 timeouts already by a particular team. Eden.
Could it be delayed to like delay session or no? I'm not too sure about this.
What was that, Yenna?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about like, is it because if a team calls like, you know, a third timeout, like the referee can give a delay sanction?
Perfect. That is exactly that. So yeah, correct. Yeah, it's so that the second referee is basically giving the first referee a heads up, and then in the event a third timeout was called, and bearing in mind before we go to that, so there's 2 situations that can actually happen. Number one is that yes, we have 2 timeouts already. An experienced second referee, when a team or coach tries to call a timeout, an experienced referee will wave it away to avoid the delay, right? So if you are keeping on track with that and you're basically, and you know that the coach is trying to call a timeout and they don't have it any, you can actually wave it away. And if they come and argue with you after the rally's ended, you can say, you've already had 2. Are you sure you want to go for another one to get a delay? And potentially they may want to. The other scenario that I reckon you will see at AYVC, because of the lack of experience of a second referee, is that you'll see coaches will call a timeout very, very late. And so then what happens is first referee may whistle, second referee will whistle as well at the same time to call a timeout. So then there will be a replay, and then you have no choice as a first referee to give a delay. This is one of those examples whereby the mistake of the second referee would cause a delay for that team, right? So because what could happen, you know, coaches are under stress, they're trying to manage a game, they might forget that they already had 2 timeouts, all right? Because they might have taken the 2 timeouts really early in the game, let's say around the 10 points mark. So it's your role as a second referee to help facilitate the match and also help educate the coaches and players accordingly. So those scenarios, I'm pretty confident you'll see at AYVC, because there'll be coaches that'll wait till the last minute to call a timeout, hoping to catch out the second referee to then blow the whistle. So therefore, one of the things that as a second referee, what you do in terms of collaboration with the first is before you blow the whistle for a timeout or a game interruption by a team, look at the first referee first. If the first referee is not looking at you at all, then wave that request away. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. What the really good collaboration between the first and second referee happens is that when there is an interruption requested, second referee looks at the first ref looks at the second ref, nods, yep, go for it, I'm okay for you then to call it. Then you call the timeout or call the substitution, whatever it may be. That way it goes really flowy, and you're also helping the teams to avoid any form of delay. You can also, the other situation that could happen in a game interruption is that the first referee's got his hand up ready to whistle to serve. The coach or player comes running in to do a substitution, and you blow the whistle at the same time as the first referee. That is one example whereby the second referee was the cause of the delay, not necessarily the team, because you could have waved the player away because it's too late and avoid the delay altogether. But in the regular rules, even though the second referee's responsibility to help manage the situation, unfortunately, if that occurs, then that team does get that delay. So anyway, that's more or less what I'm going to cover off today. 45 minutes goes by really quickly. Probably the last thing I would do it as a round table or round meeting, Google Meet. What is your biggest fear as a first or second referee? I'm going to go with Rachel.
My biggest fear as first referee is not being able to recover after really, maybe like a blow up where both teams are like arguing at you and yeah. And then as a second referee, I think my biggest fear is not being able to pick up a positional fault for a few points.
Cool.
Then, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Sam, I'm going to go to the seniors. What are your biggest fear as a first or second referee?
For me, it's the same as first and second. It's making an error in judgment or having an impact on the game that actually changes the outcome of the game. So if I make a mistake where a team's winning by 10, and instead of winning by 10, they win by 9, then I'm okay with that. But if it's like a really tight set and I've made an incorrect call or had an influence on the teams that then changes either the flow of the game or the team, yeah, I don't want to have that impact on the game. So that would be my biggest fear.
Awesome. George.
It's pretty close to what Sam is saying. Just going home thinking that I could have done a better job.
Yeah. Cool. So hopefully that sometimes your team is not helpful when you're not sure about the call. Yes. If that's one of your biggest fear, I think you need to do a lot more games to see that there are generally a lot of good duty teams, and that's more of an anomaly. For myself, I think one of my biggest fear as a first or second referee, very similar to Sam and George, right, is inconsistency with the ball handling or missing a really obvious fault that could change the course of a game. But what's actually kind of interesting, right? The players too have some real challenges they got to worry about, right? I remember coming through my development years as I coming through the ranks, as some of you here. One of the biggest fears I had is actually managing player conduct, right? You don't want to be seen as a hard person to work with or a terrible referee. And so you're reluctant to give the appropriate sanctions. So you kind of provide a bit more leniency. So I think, does this sound familiar to a few of you out there? As you hopefully can see, even the seniors to this day still have particular fears when they're doing first or second referee. And they're perfectly normal. Anyone else have any particular fears as a first and second referee that they'd like to share? Maybe some of the juniors. Where are some of the junior ones coming through? Like, agree with Sam, impacting the game negatively. Thanks, Daniel. What about Grace? What are some of your biggest fears as a first or second referee? Grace? No? Some of the ones that I've heard from some of the other referees that I've coached over the years is being yelled at by a coach or players. So I think that's probably one of the ones that can have a personal impact on you, depending on your personality. So I think one of the things that I would suggest that can help avoid or manage your fear is be very clear in your understanding of the rules. That's number one. Make sure, there's multiple sessions over the last few weeks that we've hosted that talks about mental preparation. So therefore, your best physical self and your best mental self would then reduce the risk of you making errors. Practice. The more you practice, the more you're exposed to various situations, the more you are then able to control or manage complex environments and situations as well. When you talk about when you talk about, what Rachel talks about is, getting out of control with player conduct or player behaviors or games, etc. In a lot of situations, you can point it to you're not being your best possible self, like you haven't slept well, so therefore you're tired, you're grumpy, you're not in the mood, etc. That could be one of the reasons. Or the other one is you forget your foundation of how you're actually refereeing and so forth as well. The process of scan, the process of gathering information from all your players before making the appropriate decisions. And so part of it, if you get into that situation, slow yourself down, practice all the learnings that you've had over the last few weeks around mental health and physical and slowing things down and calming yourself, and then you can get back onto the right rhythm for you. Yes, Yenna.
I have a question about the rotational thing. Rotational fault. So there was a time where there were like a few points after I realized the receiving team had makes rotational fault.
Yes.
And then I'm like, do I call that because if I call the rotational fault after the third serve, wouldn't it be a little weird? I don't know. I'm just struggling a little bit what to do because if I don't call it, obviously it's not right. Not the referee because I'm not doing my job. But also if I call it, then I'm doing the right thing. Yet the players will be like, well, then why didn't you call it beforehand? Why are you calling now? They're gonna argue with me. So
So good question, right? So I think it goes back to, right, it always goes back to understanding the rules and when it's actually considered a fault, right? So if you knew it was a fault in the first time, why didn't you call it? And it could be because it was really close and, remember it's based on a serve. So it could be really close and so therefore let it go. Okay, no worries. Remember a positional fault, not a rotational. Rotational fault is the wrong person going up to serve. Okay, let's make sure you understand the language. Positional fault is at the point of serve were all the players in the right spots, right? So if the player is just, standing really close to each other, a little bit out, and you don't call it, that's okay. At international level, they don't expect you to call it. The only time that you are to call it is if they're obviously out. And we talk about meters out, 1 or 2 meters, like 2 meters out. So really obvious. So if you're saying that you saw them, but then only the third one, maybe it is, you might be thinking that it's actually really, really close. Does that help?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So make sure you're very clear on the rules as well, because around that positional faults, because there has been a change this year. Know it well, and I reckon they'll make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever you have any doubts in a game of, should I have called it? Should I have not? Should I have called that block? Well, if you cannot explain what a definition of a block is, then you need to. Thanks, Kim. If you cannot explain the definition of a block, because there's 3 things need to happen. You got to be standing close to the net, reaching beyond the net, and intercepting a ball coming from the opponent. If all those 3 criteria doesn't meet, that's not a block, right? So that would take away a lot of that questionable 50-50 calls in that respect. Does that help? Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
No worries. I think, was that you, same David, that put a question mark around does it give the receiving team a significant advantage? No, because remember, if she wasn't calling a positional fault because it was really, really close, the advantage is actually not that much. That's why we talk about only calling that positional fault if it's really, really obvious.
He's kicked up.
Right?
That's what I meant to say, that the way I judge it is, does it cause a significant advantage to the team being out of position? So if the setters run early, but they realistically aren't out of position to such a significant extent that it gives them a huge advantage, then it's like a minor level. You let it go unless it's really egregious. But if it creates a significant advantage, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, well, the advantage, the definition of what's considered advantage is questionable. Let's just simplify it. Yeah, just simplify it, because positional fault talks about where you need to be.
Yeah.
And it talks about how in the new world, it's, you know, if it's really close, you don't, it's fine. It's only if it's out.
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's out by 2 meters, then call it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't need to be anything more. We don't want to create interpretation and definitions where you know, like, whilst it's natural for us to do that, but then, you know, definition of advantage can be anything, really. So let's make it simple. If they're not in the right position by 2 meters, call it. Right? Or if they're standing there a meter, then call it. But if they're really, really close and it's like centimeters, I'd leave it. You know what I mean?
Something I wanted to add in response to Yenna's question as well, that helped me earlier in my refereeing career, to think, particularly for positional faults, to treat every position or every rotation a team runs as a learning opportunity to gain familiarity with another way a team could position themselves. If you only notice that a player is out of position on the third receive, then you can still whistle it. You've identified the fault, you've seen the fault, so call it. Why didn't you call it earlier? Because you didn't pick it up. It's not a failure to not pick it up earlier. It's I've noticed it. Cool. Next time I'll know that that's the position there. And the more rotations you see, the more you'll be able to automatically see it. So it's less about worrying about everyone getting up in arms. Usually I actually find that a coach of the other team is happy that I've called it finally, and the coach of the team that committed the fault is pleased because, bugger, yep, whoops.
That's it, exactly. And it goes back to that, one of the earlier slides. The more experience you have, the more games you do, the more you then see the various scenarios that can call you out. Mimu. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, that is how you pronounce my name.
Awesome.
You were talking previously about, like, if you saw a touchdown, right? But the rest of your GD team said it was out, said he didn't see a touch, maybe off the block or something like that, right? And then you want to call, maybe I would call, like, touch out because I saw touch out. How would I explain it to, say, if the captains come up to me and they ask me, like, why have you disagreed with your line judges? Why have you made a different call with everyone else in your team?
Well, you've asked a great question. How would you respond to that? What is the most definitive? Yeah, what is the most definitive thing that you can say? Basically, for words, really.
I saw it. I saw a touch.
That's it. I saw a touch.
Is that it?
That's it.
Good.
They cannot argue with you. Coach goes, I mean, the player, well, coach can't ask a question, right? It's the captain of the team, remember, as a first referee. The captain is the only one allowed to ask you a question. And the captain is only allowed to ask you the interpretation of the rule. See, if you read the rule book, it actually says the captain is only allowed to ask you the interpretation of the rule. So theoretically, they can say, can you please explain to me the definition of that call? I saw the ball touch the blocker out.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that, you know, like if you happen to be doing lines, if you happen to be doing anything else, and if you're doing lines and the first referee calls you over, what did you see? It's the same thing. I saw the ball in. I saw the ball out. Not, I think I saw the ball touch. Maybe, sir? So be clear. I saw it out. Or I saw it in. Once you do that, they cannot argue with you, you know? But, you know, the most common one that I see players and coaches goes, that was carry. I saw the ball rebound. They can't argue with that. But I saw the ball rebound. What question would you like to ask Mr. or Miss Captain? Which interpretation would you like to know about? So knowing the rules and knowing what they can ask and can't ask, knowing what you can do in those situations can easily calm the players, calm the coaches, because you're demonstrating you know the rules and you're basically whistling what you see. Under no circumstances for everyone in this room should you ever go, I think I saw a touch to the captain or the coach. Or I think I saw it in. It should be I saw it in, or I saw it out, I saw it touch, that's it. And so at international level, if they ask that question, usually there's a challenge. They'll go challenge, right? The camera can go, touch. There you go. Or not touch. Oh, well, fingernail. Like if you've got really good eyes, then you'll be able to see those fingernail skinny touches. But if you don't have good eyes, then you're relying on your supporting team and the information that you get from the game, including the reaction of the players. So as you get more and more experience, you'll be able to have the ability when the ball gets hit out, players go, touch on one side, and the other side you see the player's head drops down. And then even though the linespeople's gone out, second ref gone, I think that was out, but you see the player's head drop or something like that or nod, you can call touch. Do you see what I mean about experience?
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you.
Awesome. No worries. Who else had Claire? Was it Claire? Who had the hand up? I can't work out how to use this Google Meet.
Yeah, me. I did.
There we
Also,
go. Welcome, Claire.
I think David raised the hand first.
Or was that from before, David? That might have been from before, though.
Sorry, yeah, that's from before.
Yeah.
Yeah, regarding this, I just have another side. So what happens if a player coming up to you, like you said, the previous example you give, if you are not sure, you have a slightly doubt, you're not sure if it's touch or in or out, but rest of your team says in.
Yes.
Like out or whatever.
Yes.
So the player coming in and asking you what, like you say, if they're asking what's the definition for your call. So I, as a player myself as well, often I'm not a captain, so I don't ask the question, but often you will hear the ref say, my team told me it's out. How this, like, if you are the ref, like if I'm the ref, like I think if it's me, I will just make up the call. It's out. But like,
no. And that's a good question, Claire. And the reality is, yes, you can actually go. If the captain comes up and goes, "What's the definition of the call?" I would say the ball went out. That's it, or the ball went in. There's no real question about it, right? I don't need to say it's because of the lines people, but I can do that. I can go, lines people call it in, or lines people call it out. Because the situation, I'm sure, happens when the ball calls out by the lines person, but first referee clearly sees it in and calls it in, and players go, but lines person called it out. So you can't have it both ways, Claire, as a coach. But no, look, but exactly, there's nothing stopping you from going, lines person is called out, or lines person is called in, or in the situation where you overrule the lines person. What then happens is you then go, you wave obviously away, and you go in. I saw it in. The best signal I do is I saw it in.
Yep.
Coach or player can't argue. Yes, George.
I know, right. But I'm just saying it's because my part in volleyball is not just referee. So for me, I was just thinking, because we do often, not often, but sometimes you do hear the first ref say, someone told me it's out, and they never say it's their judgment call, so that shouldn't happen, right? So the simple answer from the first referee should just be the ball is out. Then they shouldn't give explanations or whatever, or try to put the responsibility on someone else.
Don't need to. Correct. That's right. The easiest one that I would do is I saw it out. You just go with it. Like you don't have to, you can say, you know what? I think that was, like, I've had situations where I've seen the ball go really close and I've gone, I think that was in, but the line person was so adamant it was out, and with passion, I went with it. And so if the player goes to me, did you see it? I said, yes, it's out. There's not much they can do about that. My recommendation is be very short and succinct with your explanation. The more you talk, the more you get in trouble, right?
Yep.
Shorten it.
I know.
I saw the ball out. How could you see it out? I'm sorry. Are you asking me how I could see it? Is that part of the definition of the call you're making, or are you looking for a yellow card? Which one is it? Right? So know the rule well, know what you can do, and be very succinct in your explanation. Because I've seen everyone tries to be fair and I saw the ball out. There's nothing else about it. Any other question? Was there a second question there, Claire, or was that just one?
No, I would just want to say, so I think the referee's confidence is showing on the stand if all the players are smart now, and also for mature player, and also the referee players on the court. So if I can say if the players see you are not confident, they will push you a lot.
Of course, yeah. And that's all the junior referees here, right? You've got to sell it. Got to be confident, and to be confident, you got to know the rule. You got to have enough games under your belt to see different scenarios, and make the appropriate calls by practicing all the things that we talked about, gathering information. Once you have the information, make the appropriate calls. Be very clear, be very succinct when a player asks you a question. Be very clear in terms of the explanation and so forth as well. Yes, George.
Just adding here, I guess one of the main jobs of the first referee is to, after each rally or during the rally, is to collect all the available information from line judges, second referee. But ultimately, the final decision is the first referee's decision. And I say that because this is an advice I'd like to give to referees going to AYVC. You're going to be working with young players as duty teams. So don't expect all of them to really portray that ultra confidence you're looking for into a line judge. So be prepared to have the final decision as a first referee, as it's one of your main jobs in a game. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah. And you're all only human, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. The biggest thing that I can suggest to you is acknowledge the mistake. So if you're sitting down with your referee coach, acknowledge the mistake, whatever you made, what would you do differently, and just learn, be accepting of your current ability and your current experience, because we've all been there. Kind of like riding a bicycle, right? We start off on little balance bike, and now we ride two wheels, and some ride motorbikes, etc. You've got to have experience under your belt to see different scenarios and build that confidence. And one of the ways you can do it without the games yet is know the different rules. The ones that I've spoken to in the past, I've always suggested to focus a lot more on the rules that is in most cases, quite contentious. So a lot of it stems around play at the net, playing in the opponent's space, blocking, attack hit, libero contact, etc., and all those kind of stuff. They're usually the most common ones. Catch and throws, they're the most common ones that players and coaches will argue about. But if you know how to explain almost verbatim out of the rule book to a player, and I can assure you most players don't even know what the rule is, you'll be able to easily build that confidence really easily on that you know the rules better than they do, and you know how to apply it. Kelvin, I recently had the situation where one team had asked me to ask the opposing team whether they touched the ball or not. My duty team has all said no touch. What would your response to both teams be? I would just ignore that. Personally, I would just ignore that request, because I would remind that team again, or that captain, that the only thing that captain can ask is the interpretation of the rule. There is nothing in the rule book that talks about asking a player or the opposing team whether they touched the ball or not. And just shut it down quickly. And if they insist, then you just give them a delay sanction. Cool. You see what I mean? Sometimes a lot of scenarios, I'm sure there are a lot of different scenarios that could happen. In a lot of cases, you need to understand what is their responsibility or what they have the right to ask, and then what is the quickest response, right? Because ultimately you as a first referee hold the power. Number one, are they allowed to ask a question? Yes or no? If not, thank you very much. Remind them they can only ask the interpretation of the rule. If they insist, then please remind them that potentially you'll get a delay sanction. It's very simple. And you can do it with a smile, or be friendly about it is what I mean. So you don't have to be kind of, like a dictator looking, but you can do it with a soft tone and say, look, just reminder, you can only ask about the interpretation of a rule. what you're asking for is not within the guidelines of the rule, I'm afraid. Thank you. Let's play. Cool. Any other questions? How many here is a first time going to AYVC? Can you just do your thumbs up? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. How exciting. 5. Great. So I will tell you, as your first experience at a national event, you'll probably see kids play well beyond their age. That's one of the things that I found, that they seem to play a lot better from, even some of the adults in our respective tournaments. It can be a little bit daunting because it's a little bit more formal, because then you're running protocols for warm-ups, etc. You've got a second referee, you've got a first referee, you've got referee coach potentially watching your game and watching your every move, etc. So it can be quite daunting. My recommendation to you is use the opportunity to calm down, slow down. You are there at the event, at the tournament, because you have earned the right to be. We as New South Wales Association, or Referee Association, believe you have the ability and capability to be at that event and officiate well. Make sure you are very well prepared in terms of your rest, so rest wherever you can, hydrate wherever you can, eat wherever you can. Just make sure that you are your best possible self, so plan properly. I'm sure there have been other discussions about, stepping away, taking times away, don't have to sit at the auditorium the whole time, etc. But just be very cognizant of that, because I don't know what it's like at AYVC this time, but back in the day when we used to do nationals, we would start at 8 and sometimes finish at 1 in the morning. I don't know whether AYVC is like that these days, but just make sure you manage yourself and rest, and try and prepare, be your best possible self at the event. Yes, David.
Don't forget to enjoy the experience. Like, after all, you're visiting the best city in the country, so you
No,
might as well.
look at that. Yeah, excellent. Yes, very true. Tell Danny I said hi. It's been a while. Cool. Danny and I don't know whether Danny, Renee, and Brendan, I don't think is refereeing anymore, though, is he? Buckles.
This is not, but Renee and Danny certainly are.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Any other questions? I've taken up enough times. Hopefully it's been knowledgeable and worthwhile. If you've got any questions, let us know. Maybe we'll see you on the weekend with finals rounds.
Great. Thanks for the insightful presentation, Aaron. I'm sure all of us, including myself, have really learnt a lot from you tonight, and stuff that we can apply this weekend. It's finals ready. Thanks again, everyone, for coming along. And next week is our last week of these series, so make sure you do attend. Have a good night, and I'll see you, if you're in Sydney, at SVO on Sunday.
Thank you.
See you.
Thanks, Aaron. Good luck for finals, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Bye. So long.